Welcome in, everybody, to the latest episode of All Things NBA from A to Z, presented by Ball is Life. I'm Kris and here alongside Zach and Albert, ready to talk all the latest buzz around the association. We're going to be catching up on all the latest headlines. So a headline segment, a buzz segment, whatever you want to call it. We're here to catch up with y'all on all the latest around the NBA, some of the biggest storylines going on right now, and where we're at on them. So, guys, how we feeling recently? How anything that's standing out? Anything you're having fun with in the association? Any random role player you want to shout out before we get into this?
I'm just following Albert, man. You just start paying the man. The guy's rolling. I mean, he's on an NBA heater right now.
No, I appreciate
mind
it.
you his pick tonight, but it's been a fun ride. I just wish I was a little smarter and went a little harder.
No, I guess first of all, thank you, Zach, for that. Kris, thank you for setting everything up as always. All the listeners out there, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Have a great time with your friends and family. I love recording it tonight, Tuesday at 9 Central, because it's in the middle of this awesome Memphis New Orleans Pelicans game right now. With Memphis first lead of the game. They're up 111, 109. We'll be monitoring that all game long. But no, I'm excited, and I'm excited to get into the topics tonight. Thank you, Kris.
Yeah, well, listen, Al, that was a perfect first team, game to talk about, first game to bring up. And as the Grizzlies have Ja Morant back, and he is who put them up 111, 109 with a nice finish inside. Memphis, man, let's talk about what's going on out there. They're 6-19 in their 25 games that they had without Morant. Now playing a 16-11 New Orleans team and doing decently. Where are we at on them, and how do we feel about Morant's return? He's got 30 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists thus far with a minute and a half to go in his first game back. No surprise there. He came out firing against the New Orleans Pelicans, but Brandon Ingram having a game himself, 34 points, 6 assists. So making buckets, making plays. Where are we at on the Grizzlies and specifically with this angle of Morant?
Wow. No.
Back in
I'll
tier one
start. No,
contention, baby.
Wow, Zach.
No.
I'll start, and then I'll listen to you because I really respect Zach's opinion, not only on Memphis but on New Orleans too. I think it's too little, too late. I think Ja Morant. I'm not a big Ja Morant fan. Okay, I'll caveat the next 2 to 3 minutes with that. I'm not a big fan. I'm very respectable of his talent and his physical attributes, but the way that he impacts a game, and maybe he's going to prove me wrong, right? Maybe this is the line of demarcation for his career, and he's going to have that type of impact where he's making winning plays and not just a one-on-one player. Maybe he's going to become that. But everything up to this point, I wasn't a big fan of his, even though I do respect his talent. I think he should have beaten the Warriors 2 years ago. But I think it's too little too late. I mean, 25 games is a lot, and the West is so competitive. Honestly, both conferences right now is very competitive. But the uphill climb that they have right now, sitting at, what did you say, 6-19? Yeah, it's, I don't know. Even if they make, even if they make a play-in tournament, even if they make the play-in tournament and they have to play the ninth seed on the road and then the winner of the 6-7, I don't know. It's just too much. I'm out on them this year. They need to kind of shore up their draft picks because they've actually missed on a couple draft picks in recent years. And then moving forward, whether that's trading for Mikal Bridges, whether that's trading for OG Anunoby, whether that's Zach LaVine, whatever the case may be, I think they need a jolt of offensive and defensive energy, just because this team is going to get stale. And I'm in Dallas, so it's always a narrative here, but if we don't win, you're always going to fear that Luka leaves. I think Memphis is that next city, that next team If they don't start winning this year, next year, maybe the beginning of the year after, Ja Morant's gonna want out.
He's
Well,
got to prove a lot before any team's going to want him. And even Memphis is even going to try to get rid of him because they're so invested in this guy. He's got a lot to prove. He's on a huge redemption tour, and he's starting tremendously game one here. The most points scored ever with somebody missing 25 games. Like, he's making history tonight. Hopefully he can pull off the W. I mean, they're 14 games back of first. So everything Albert said is legit. Yes, I think they can still make the playoffs and the play-in. They're 7.5 games back of the play-in. I do think some teams are going to fall. That's not very far back this early in the year. I loved the growth in Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. They definitely shown they can do a lot more with the basketball, and they aren't dependent on a point guard necessarily. Memphis is just lacking talent. I mean, Marcus Smart going down was big too, and Ja Morant coming back. I mean, if they start tonight with a huge W, that could
well,
change it.
I was gonna say, let me
They
paint a
lose.
picture. Let me paint a picture with the standings quick. The Grizzlies now 7-19. No longer tied with the Trailblazers for the 13th seed because they have won tonight. Ja Morant,
Boom.
34, 6 and 8, and a game-winning floater off a spin move, right at the buzzer, gets the Grizzlies to 7-19. So the Spurs are 4-21. The Blazers are 6-19. The Grizz are 7-19. The Jazz 10-17. The Warriors 12-14, and then after that, the 10 seed are the Suns, and every team above them is above 500. So the Suns are 14-12. Every team above there is above 500. So the Grizzlies do have a little ways to go. They are currently 13 games back.
This would be an amazing redemption story. I think we all agree though, the teams that are just ahead of them, they're better than them with Ja Morant. They're better than the Jazz. They're definitely better than the
Golden
Blazers and
State.
the Spurs who are below them. Golden State's an interesting one, right? Because of the whole Draymond thing. You still have the Steph issue, not issue, but the Steph, narrative there
Factor.
because, yeah, I mean, I'm not a Steph guy, but he's just so good, guys. Like,
Oh, it's tremendous.
yes, Steph, even in his worst year, is going to drag a team to 35 to 40 wins, right? Do
Eh,
we see a regression with Houston? Do we see a regression with New Orleans? Those are the questions. But I do think they're better than Utah. It's still going to be tough to surpass Phoenix, surpass the Lakers.
You did say Dallas is going to start regressing without Lively too,
Yep.
and they looked
They're
terrible last night in the second half.
yep.
Um, they fell apart against Denver last night. So, I mean, there's plenty of options for these guys to leap pretty quickly, I think. But yeah, they'd have to go on a tear, and it's going to take time getting used to some of these new guys like Zaire. And just new Desmond Bane, how they've been playing with so much usage and having the ball in their hands. So I think Taylor Jenkins can get it done. I mean, these guys have played together many years now. Ja Morant's focus, he's been practicing with these guys, so why not? Like, the difference is, like, hard. I mean, it didn't take long. 5 games is not a long time to get the Clippers rolling, but Ja Morant was there practicing this whole time, where Harden, you've never played with these guys ever. So completely different story. This guy was healthy. He's very healthy. So why can't they just get rolling right away?
So this is a little off topic, Chris and Zach. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. But let's say you are a Desmond Bane, you're a Jaren Jackson. Your team is struggling. Everybody watches you on TV, and your team is struggling. But behind closed doors, your superstar is still practicing. Like how do you cope with that? Because this guy is going to be out for 25 games. And you know that if he was playing, the record might have been flipped, right? They're 7-19. They could be 19-7, right? With Ja Morant.
I
So
think that makes me think right away about the challenge being coaching. How do you get guys to buy in for those first 25 games and not just be like, oh, the season starts game 26? Because it doesn't. It started 25 games ago and they were 6-19 in that stretch. I made a prediction on this podcast that despite being generally lower on the Grizzlies than mostly everyone, that they would win like 15 to 16 to 18, some good amount, a good chunk of those games without Morant. I thought they'd tread water, but they had some injury, misfortune, and overall just looked really bad. We were doing like Derrick Rose hype, and it was just like they weren't winning. I just now Morant is back. How good will they be? Obviously, they're better than a 240 team, right? Like 240 win rate before Morant came back is not spectacular. Obviously now it's already up to 270, but small sample size. Yeah, the Grizzlies are going to be all right. I don't think they're a team to worry about this season. But they're going to be a feisty play-in team if they get their way in there. I'm looking at the Rockets at 13 and 11, the Jazz at 10 and 17 as teams that the Grizzlies can, get on a roll and overcome in the standings. If the Jazz trade Markkanen, that is going to obviously catapult them to the bottom. So the Grizzlies would have an easy time getting 12. You look at the Rockets at 13 and 11. Pelicans are 16 and 11. Lakers are 15 and 12. Suns are 14 and 12. Those are tough teams for the Grizzlies to overcome. And you guys know I wasn't big on the Lakers this season, but they're 15 and 12. They're playing decent enough basketball where the Grizzlies are gonna have to put together a really good stretch to overcome them. You're going to need to see that synergy from that practice come into play right away.
Really nice win tonight on the road in Memphis against a quality opponent there. Zach, I have a question for you.
Real quick, I want to answer your last question.
Yeah.
Didn't get it. So you got to think these guys have gone through this with Ja before, like what they're feeling in the background with Ja not being around and them getting frustrated with these losses. One, Jaren Jackson Jr. kind of has a right. He's proven himself in this league. He's got the bag already. So maybe he could get frustrated, rightfully so. Desmond Bane, he's still got a long ways to go to prove himself before he can get totally frustrated, but seems like a pretty relaxed dude and a guy that can get along with most guys. Do I know how tight-knit this group is? I don't know. That's to be determined. I feel like it's kind of like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, however you want to view that. I think it's pretty professional, and I think these guys have missed Ja plenty of times in the past, and they've been able to overcome that right away, coming back from injury. So I think they're going to be fine. Jaren Jackson would be the only one I'd be worried about, but it starts off with a bang. That's all you need. So
okay, so my question is this, Zach. At the end of the day, 6 and 19 is bad. Whether you have your superstar or not, like 6 and 19 is a bad team, even though they have some quality guys. So is that more of an indictment on Desmond Bane not being able to be the number one, or is that more of an indictment on Jaren Jackson not being a number two?
Listen, I think it's a lot to do with their defense, because you'd think their defense should still be great. I mean, Marcus Smart played in enough games where it was still bad during those Marcus Smart. It's not a bad defense. It's just basically average 9th, 10th in the league, wherever you want to put it. But the Memphis defense should be a top 5 if you got a defensive player of the year that's legit, which I never thought he was that good. I think his defense is a bit overrated. He still gets in foul trouble quite a bit. Yes, there's points are pretty empty, but that's how it starts, honestly. And it's a process, and it evolves to get those big statistics. So this is the first step to prove those guys can do it. I'm not saying that they can't be those guys that put up huge numbers and make them meaningful, but I mean, it's definitely more negative than positive. But I mean, it's their first time really getting that role as well.
Well, let's talk about this for a second. I think Jackson Jr. is a really good defender. I just think he's not a 5. And Al, I honestly, my answer to your question that you just asked about, who's it more of an indictment on? My answer is neither. I don't, like when I've long thought Jenkins is a little overrated. Their front office is super overrated, but no, I don't think so. I just think it's the fact that, the guys are playing up a role offensively and none of them are really built for that. and that the Grizzlies roster construction, like they don't really have great ancillary talent. Zaire Williams, swing and a miss. Roddy, swing and a miss. Uh, Kennedy Chandler, 40th pick, already like waived in his like rookie season. You know what I mean? Like this, they've missed on so many draft picks recently, and it's
And they
like,
hit on Aldama, man. And got
oh,
David Roddy casually, huh?
Roddy has not been good this season. So, obviously too early to
Eh.
write someone off, but he's not a good player right now. And that's not what they need. So, um, it's tough with Memphis, right? But the thing is, Al, what I'm saying is it's more the front office just not putting the best team together. Also, the Adams injury is really tough, right? That's pretty brutal. It forces Jaren Jackson Jr. into a bit of defensive responsibility that he wouldn't normally have, picks up some fouls, maybe. If we take a look at the raw numbers of his personal fouls,
Averaging the exact same as
it's the
last year,
exact same from 2022 to this season. So not going down, never mind. But I still think that as a 4, he's really good. You just need a 5 there, and theirs got hurt, and theirs wasn't great in the first place. Even though I love Steven Adams, he's awesome, but not at basketball anymore.
Not the right fit. Yeah.
Yeah, not the right fit either.
And for those who are just listening for the first time, Kris has mentioned this previously, right? Just the lack of talent that Memphis has drafted. I'm looking at their draft history right now, guys. It's pretty bad outside of Ja and Jaren Jackson, obviously.
I like Vince Williams Jr. I had him
and
top 35. His class, he's decent. That
that's
can't be
22.
like
But
one of your top
listen to
2 picks.
listen here. 2014 Jordan Adams, 2015 Gerald Martin, 2016 they had 2, Wade Baldwin and Wang Zilin. 2017 no pick, 2018 Jaren Jackson, Javon Carter, 2019 Ja Morant, 2020 they traded their pick of Robert Woodard, 2021 Trey Murphy traded, Brandon Boston traded, 2022 Walker Kessler traded, Ty Washington traded, Vince Williams is going to be a mainstay there, and then this year Marcus Sasser, Gregory Jackson, and Tarek Biberovich. I mean, outside of John Jaren, you don't have any starters. How did they get
Sasser's
Desmond
really good
Bane?
in Detroit.
How did they get Desmond Bane?
I think they traded into the back of the first to draft him, right?
Gotcha.
At 30.
Okay. I mean, Desmond Bane is a nice pickup, but I think we saw with all the hype going into this year, and this could be the final thing as we get into the next topic. With all the hype going into this season for Memphis and like staying afloat, because the last, Zach, you know this, the last
It was
2-3 years.
Sorry, it was the Celtics pick, and the Grizzlies sent a future pick to Boston for him.
The last 2-3 years when Ja Morant was out due to injury or load management, whatever the case may be, Memphis still won. They actually had an unbelievable record with Ja Morant out of starting lineup because they had Tyus Jones, right? They don't have him this year, and they've struggled. Obviously, we've already mentioned it, 6-19 in the first 25 games. At least, I thought they were going to go 500, right?
Remember when they had DeAnthony Melton and then turned him into nothing? Like they didn't. They just traded him for draft picks.
That was awful.
They got like Jake LaRavia, wasn't even the best player on Wake Forest. Like I think it's tough with Memphis, and I think that you look at the misallocation of the draft capital, and then you understand why they offered 4 first-round picks for freaking Mikal Bridges. It's like they just need they needed better players. They could go after OG.
I think you're being pretty harsh though for 15 second-round picks, late 20s. Like, let's be honest, they hit on Jaren Jackson Jr., they hit on Desmond Bane, they hit on Ja Morant. They're 3 top picks. Really, they only really missed on Zaire Williams, and then sure Jake LaRavia, just because every team missed on Tyrese Maxey. No, that was a different draft. So they really didn't miss on Jake LaRavia anyways. So he was number 19. You can't, my thing is in the draft, you got to judge a team's top 15, their lottery picks. That's about it. Everything else is kind of a crapshoot. You give them props if they hit 15 and beyond. Yes, the trade for Melton, trash. You can judge Adams for Valanciunas. There's jury's still out there. Some people prefer Adams.
Zach,
Um,
they drafted Laravia, the 19th
19.
pick, right? Christian Brown went 21, Walker Kessler 22,
I don't care. It was the 19th pick.
Roddy 23, and they got him. And then Beauchamp right after that. And then Peyton Watson 30.
But I look at that, every team missed those guys. Like when you get past 20, it's like that's an indictment onto every team.
It's awesome for them that they got Vince at 47 in that same draft, right? But my point is, look at all the impact guys that went right around there, and they made all these trades to wind up with Laravia and Roddy at 19 and 23. Like, no one forced them to draft in that draft, right? People act like you have to make a pick. The Knicks drafted Ousmane Dieng at number 11 in that draft and turned him into 3 first-round picks from the Thunder because Presti was jacked up for Ousmane Dieng, who no one hears about now. You don't have to pick somebody. The Grizzlies went out of their way to make 2 first-round picks that have both already busted. So, given how good you need them to be, they've busted. Now, will they be bad players long term? No, I actually think I think Laravia can be decent. I just think that you have to look at these moves, these 2 first-round picks, all these blown draft picks, and then you can't wonder why they go 6 and 19 without Morant. Yes, Adams got injured, but 6 and 19, and you spent 3 years getting called the future of the NBA. There's a disconnect somewhere.
Fair.
That's it. Well, let's pivot. Let's stay in the bottom of the standings, right? But let's go over to the Eastern Conference. We got to do it. I want to talk about the Detroit Pistons. The Washington Wizards got their 4th win the other day. So they're
Is this an NBA team?
They're 4 and 22 now. That's fun. The Hornets are 7 and 18. And then you get to the absolute cluster conglomerate of the Bulls at 11 and 17, the Raptors at 11 and 15, the Hawks at 11 and 15, and then a bunch of teams with 13 wins, 3 teams with 15 wins. The East is pretty packed tight in the middle, okay? No team has more than 2 more wins than another team from seeds 1 through 12. If you look at one team to the next, there's not a 3-win gap anywhere from seeds 1 through 12 in the East. But you know who has 9 fewer wins than that 12 seed? At Crazy. 2 and 25. And there's a reason I took so long to intro this, because with a 24-game losing streak at 2 and 25, 1 and 12 at home, 1 and 13 on the road, and obviously 0 of 10 in their last 10 because they're 0 of 24 in their last 24. The Detroit Pistons. Guys, what the hell is going on?
Could you believe Bojan Bogdanovic is the missing piece to unlock Cade?
I mean, I understand it completely because when you look at their personnel and the coverages Cade was facing when Bojan was out, it makes a lot of sense. The thing is, how the hell is Bojan Bogdanovic such a leverage swinger on your team? You just lost by 6 to Atlanta, and it was impressive. You went down by 30 to Milwaukee, 30 to Philadelphia, 20 to Philadelphia, 8 to Indiana. Good job. 30 to Orlando. This stuff is ridiculous. You know who they only lost to by 14? Memphis. I think that they're so ugly roster construction wise. Troy Weaver, I've been talking about it all season, put together a really poor roster, and I said it in the offseason. And it just continues to hurt itself. These guys are all bringing each other down. And they all probably just want to get out of there.
What makes the 2 and 25 in record even worse, Kris and Zach, is they were 2 and 1. They had a winning record. They lost the first game to Miami, and then they beat
Anybody
Charlotte.
can do that.
Then they beat Charlotte in Charlotte again. Anybody can do that. And then they beat Chicago. They were 2 and 1, and they haven't won since. That was in October. That was pre-Halloween, guys. And I've been a defender of this team. I not high, but I believed in the potential of this team heading into the season. That hiring Monty Williams was the right move. I thought Cade coming back from injury is going to be great for this team. But come on, man, losing 24 games in a row. At this point, the players have stopped trying and have stopped caring.
Here's the bright spot. Cade Cunningham last night had the youngest 45-5 games, 40 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists since Isaiah Thomas, the old Piston.
Awesome. That's awesome.
And yes, they lost, but it was much closer. And Jaden Ivey's, I don't know why he's finally getting his tick.
Yeah, he's
And
starting now after like not playing.
Cade's efficiency is up 6% true shooting percentage with Boyan in the lineup. Turnovers have gone down. Everything's up. It's just, when are they going to get this first win? When's the prediction? I think they get one in the next 3 games.
Oh, Jesus.
So in the next 3 games, they're hosting
Utah.
Utah, and then they're in Brooklyn, and then they're hosting Brooklyn. So
I
it
bet
is it is a kind of an interesting scheduling quirk with the holidays, right? Because it happened very similarly around Thanksgiving too. You saw a lot of duplex spots where a team would host and the next team would host. We're seeing it again here during Christmas. So they're playing in Brooklyn the 23rd.
The home and homes. Yep.
Yeah, they're playing in Brooklyn the 23rd, and then they're hosting on the 26th. Brooklyn having to celebrate Christmas Day in Detroit is probably going to give the advantage to Detroit there. So I agree with you, maybe in the next 3 games, but how can you bet on this team right now? How can you back and defend this team?
Who's touching them?
It's tough, man.
It's rough. Monty Williams was their Larry Brown hire with the Knicks, where he didn't give any shits, and they threw a bunch of money at him, and he took it. And then coached like he didn't care. That's what Monty's doing, in my opinion. That's what it looks like. That would be like my best guess. But
he wanted to get his bag, man.
Yeah, exactly. You can't blame him. In line with this, with the Pistons, there's someone on this team that some pretty good teams are trying to pry away from this mess, and it's Isaiah Stewart. James Edwards from The Athletic said that Boston, OKC, and Dallas have shown interest in Isaiah Stewart. I love that move for OKC. I absolutely love the thought of Oklahoma City taking some of their draft capital, of which they have an abundant quantity, and just using a little bit to go ahead and grab Stewart, add some talent to their team. He'll help bolster their defense even further. And he's athletic, so I think he kind of fits what they're doing in OKC. And they need to keep the coffers full for a star swing. I get it, right? Because Shea, Chet, and then like another big star is super deadly. But Isaiah Stewart could be salary in that star trade down the line. You've got to make upgrades. You've got to make consolidations. You've got to make these moves. So, if I'm Oklahoma City, I would be the team to try to win those sweepstakes. What do you guys think?
I think they're the ideal location. That'd be the dream, right next to Chet. I think he's the perfect fit for sure. I love that idea. It's a pretty easy path for them to acquire him. I don't think it would take any more than one protected, I'd say top 15 protected, maybe top 20 protected, a late first, maybe a couple seconds with it. But the other team that comes to mind for me, I love Boston. I love them in the race there. They need to bolster that bench. They need size. They need girth. I think he runs at a good pace with those guys as well. Trying to think who else. I mean, I think he's a guy that fits most places.
Boston would be great because we know they need front court help, but
So I'm not trying to be a hater, but he's a 6'8" center. So
right, Boston has height. Same with OKC. So then
you're just looking for like an enforcer, like a Charles Oakley type.
Yeah.
For the season, he's averaging. Yeah, for the season, he's
good.
averaging 10.2 points, 6.8 rebounds. His splits are 45.5% from the field. He's shooting 3.5 threes at a pretty decent clip, 36.7%, high 70s when it comes to free throws. I mean, percentages efficiency wise, he's doing great. If he
I'd like to
gets,
see that field goal percentage way higher
I think it's
for a
because
big.
half of his shots are 3-pointers.
Great point.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, you're right. If you pair him with a Chet or you pair him with a Porzingis, that makes sense. But outside of those skinny, tall centers, there's not many teams that would be a good fit for him.
Guys, his
I think he'd
advanced
be
stats
great in
have declined.
OKC.
His advanced stats have declined every year since his rookie year. Every single one of them across the board. I'm looking at him.
He's on the pit. That's okay. He's on the Pistons. Get him out of there.
I mean, yeah, somebody's got to save him. And it's not like it's a bad contract, but it's not horrible. I mean, every team's got a little dead money to get that. What other teams, though? Anybody got any other teams? What about Dallas, Albert?
Al,
I mean,
what's the
Dallas makes a
cracking?
little sense. Yeah, Dallas makes a little bit of sense there. I mean, Derek Lively is right now in his young career is one of those skinny centers. I think he's going to fill out in the next few years, but right now is a good spot. Grant Williams had a really hot start to the season. He's cooled off a little bit. He's also an undersized power forward,
What's the
which kind of,
offer if you're Dallas? Who are you giving up?
I mean, it's for me as a Mavericks fan, I've been trying to sell guys like Tim Hardaway Jr., Dwight Powell,
Oh, he's been great though.
one of the young guys. So if you want a Josh Green or Jaden Hardy, one of those, it's hard because right now you can't quantify the value in Dallas because they've been playing hurt for basically half the year. But yeah, it'd be a combination of one of those guys, non-starters. Yeah.
So you need more than Dwight
Draft
Powell.
capital, though?
I just tried that. Yeah. Trying to think who else.
You
I
would
mean,
have to
obviously
include draft.
Tim Hardaway would get it done.
Yeah, or take back
But I
Boyan's
went,
contract, right? So Boyan and Tim
oh,
Hardaway's
that'd be nice.
Well,
contract would be a wash.
they're gonna
Yeah.
want more draft capital for Bojan.
Yes, exactly. So Boyan and Tim Hardaway's contracts would be a wash, and then the other part would be Powell for Stewart. The only way to entice that is to add 1 or 2 draft picks.
All right.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's definitely not a needle mover. That's for sure.
I
Go
feel
get
like if
Joe
you're,
Harris and Boyan while you're at it too, and then
you love Joe Harris, man.
I
This
just
guy's
hate
Zach
him on
Joe
that
Harris.
team.
He,
Free
he
Joe Harris.
Joe Harris and Norman Powell. Those are Zach's boys.
Right? Like what is it with him and the bench shooters that don't guard?
Do you guys follow college and then draft picks a lot? So they're gonna get the number 1 pick. It's it's pretty apparent that they're okay. It's not guaranteed, but they're gonna have the worst record in the league. So they're gonna have
Yes.
the best chance to get the number 1 pick.
Sure,
Who's the
yes.
who's the number 1 pick this year? I have no idea. And will it
It's
help
not
Detroit?
guarantee.
Okay, so it's pretty rough right now in terms of like
Yeah.
top end talent. Basically, if you're Detroit, if you really like Duran, Alex Sarr, he's playing on the Perth Wildcats in Australia. Sarr is someone who looks really versatile and who looks like a high ceiling big man.
Talking about someone from Australia right now. That's how bad college basketball is.
Andrew, but it's
Yo,
a bad year, man. It's a
Al,
bad
I
year.
would say about half the guys that go in the lottery will either be international or G League Ignite or
Wow, I had no idea.
like
So the
Serbia,
best college players.
Serbia,
Go for it.
France, G League Ignite, and Australia all gonna see in the top 10 to top 14.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, we'll dive more into it as the season goes, but
Oh, absolutely we will. But Alex Sarr, the big, you want to go with that. You just have to move Wiseman, you have to move Bagley both, and then you have Sarr come off the bench and you start Duran at the 5. If you want to go point guard, which I wouldn't, Isaiah Collier could be your pick from USC. He's like 6'3", 6'4".
what
Maybe
about Cody Williams?
Cody Williams. I love him. I've been on him since last year, but so when he was in high school, but not someone you take number one overall, in my opinion. The other guy, if you want to get funky, they could go Ron Holland from the G League Ignite. That would be like a defensive pick, and you just have him and All-Star clamping guys. But this is a team that struggles to
They're
put
not
the
gonna they're
ball in
not
the
gonna
basket.
draft a
So,
defensive guy for
no,
number one overall,
no.
right?
I'm saying like he's an athletic, like he's super athletic. He's super, but I think Sar would be the pick for them. Weaver
Yeah,
likes
that'd be
length.
bad.
Sar is a 7'1" offensively versatile big man. That sounds like Troy Weaver, right? So
Do you guys think Wiseman or Bagley have much of a future?
in the NBA or in
That's
Detroit?
that's the question.
Oh, okay, I was
Yeah,
gonna
in
say,
the NBA.
if as long as they're in Detroit, they might, but in the NBA, I don't
Really?
think so. Wiseman needs to like set better screens and do the little things better. I feel like in Golden State, he never learned to do the little things, and now on Detroit, it's a team where everyone can kind of go get their own, and it probably shouldn't be so strongly that way. I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I like some things I've seen from Bagley offensively. That's about it. Wiseman hasn't played enough for me, and it's just garbage time and doesn't matter. So I would lean towards Bagley if anything, but I mean, there's still some highlights that are keeping him around. Can we move off the Pistons yet?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm
That
ready.
seemed like a decade, man.
Um, let's do it. Let's talk about let's go in the opposite direction, man. Let's go from the bottom of the standings to mocking up trades and doing trade talk. Let's contribute to the mess of trade talk. We got three guys, man, that are kind of buzzing around right now. Their names are buzzing in trade talks. Donovan Mitchell, probably on his way out of Cleveland, as people know. So he's someone who everyone's talking about. Zach LaVine, I've reported that he has talked to the Chicago front office and said he pretty much wants out at this point. He wants to start looking at other options. So
They're so much better without LaVine too.
LaVine is someone who I think will be looking to get moved soon and who Chicago might be looking to move at this point. Um, and Lauri Markkanen, man, I don't know that he'll get moved because the Jazz are going to want so much for him, but his name has come up in trade talks as well. Maybe as someone that a team like OKC could target. Shea, Lauri, and Chet would be that big three I was talking about earlier. Um, Either one, I know Zach wants to start with Zach LaVine because he loves that guy. Should we do that?
Let's do it.
All right, let's start with Zach
Be
LaVine.
nice.
Noble, I'm gonna go to you first for obvious reasons. You're gonna tell me right now. It doesn't have to be like a perfect answer. Just what's a team that should trade for Zach LaVine and why? What should they give up? Why would it be worth it? I want to see where you're at on his value and who could use him.
So, I mean, to rank these guys' value, it obviously goes Mitchell, Lauri. I mean, you can no, it's Mitchell, Lauri, Zach. Okay, Zach and
I
Lauri.
go Lauri way first.
No,
Yeah,
I
you're
knew you were
lower
gonna.
on Mitchell though.
But
You're
Mitchell's
lower
a
on
Right.
free
Mitchell.
agent in 25 and Lauri's signed, no?
Okay, that's a fair
They
reason.
wouldn't
You're
trade
right.
for Mitchell unless an extension is
But you're
real.
trading for Mitchell, hoping you can.
Mm.
Lauri's an easier personality to deal with. You're gonna get a committed guy wherever he goes. He's just seems to be like a people pleaser type of dude. Maybe I could be way off on that too, but that's just my thoughts. Mitchell, I mean, has to go to the perfect location. Zach, I think he understands like his value is very, very low, honestly. And that's the tough thing about Zach. Not many teams are very interested in him. I think that's wrong. I think it should be, but I think the problem too is I think the Bulls want closer to like a Danny Ainge asking price here. I mean, the Bulls shouldn't want as much now that Kobe White is filling that role just as well, if not better, and doesn't need half the usage to get it done. And he plays a little more, better defense, whatever you think Kobe White's defense is. I think it's average, maybe a little above at times, but For that contract, yes, he's the exact reason why you got to do this immediately. Get Zach LaVine out of here. So teams I see fit. The Warriors were a big one before Clay started getting hot again, so they're out of the picture for me unless it's like, I don't know, Wiggins. You can get rid of Wiggins for LaVine, then I'd say maybe, but then Wiggins' defense is still much better.
Yeah, advantage Wiggins.
Yeah, but it's just that contract's like the worst in the league now that he just sucks on offense. Um, I would say the Miami Heat got to be towards the top. I mean, for what I think he makes them a real contender, tier 1 contender. I think that's the only team, unless
Okay,
he
there
goes
we
to
go.
like,
There's a take.
Tier 1
yeah,
contender is
Damn,
defined as top 3 in the conference.
no, in the like
in the
can
league.
beat anybody.
Tier
So
one
Top 5
means
in the
tier
top
league.
1 right
Top
now.
5 in the league.
Here's my tier 1 right now. It's Denver, the Clippers, Boston, and Milwaukee. Those 4. That's it. And Miami would be there with Zach LaVine if they kept Tyler Hero, which I think they can. That's how low Zach LaVine's value. It's coming picks back is all that's important to the Bulls. Spurs should be up there, but I doubt they want him. Maybe I think his personality
different
could
timeline.
fit. You think? You don't think they want to rush this 1B timeline?
I wouldn't say rush is the right word there. I think they want to build, whether that's quickly or slowly, but they want to build smartly. And I don't think Zach LaVine is a San Antonio Spurs product.
Fair enough. Knicks are tricky, but I love the Knicks. I think as long as you keep the other 3 intact, unless he was for Julius
What would
Randle.
you give
I mean,
up if you were New York? What would you give up? So you're not you're not touching Brunson or Randall. So
No,
Obviously
I'm not
not.
touching Bronson or RJ. I
Well,
might hang on
RJ.
to.
So if you're New York, you have to think if you're bringing in LaVine, like what touches is he gonna get? You can give him Barrett's touches and trade Barrett for LaVine. Chicago wants to go younger, so you trade Barrett for LaVine is one option. The other option is you acknowledge that you've got to move someone at some point, but you hold on to Barrett and you do something like Fournier and McBride and draft compensation, like whatever works salary wise, but like
I don't think Chicago's doing it.
So you said draft compensation
2-3 picks. You don't think they do
New York
trash?
wouldn't send unprotected.
To be honest,
so.
I completely forgot Fournier was still on the Knicks. Like
he's just salary at this point for them. That's the role he's serving for them on the roster is salary to include in a trade so that they don't have to include someone that plays. I think is where they're at.
So it works with Isaiah, Dante, and Evan. Now you just got to fill in the picks there, and that should work. And you keep your big 4, and that elevates New York to me as a real Eastern Conference Finals contender.
They don't have a 5 if they do that trade.
Are they
have Mitchell Robinson.
Are they splitting up the Villanova? They're not going to split up the Villanova trio.
Dante? Really? You don't get rid of Dante?
I think it would they would do it on paper, but I think from a morale standpoint, I don't think it would be beneficial to Brunson and Hart. They brought him in, man. They recruited him in, and if you don't do Dante, friend.
I understand.
Hart opted into his player option and waited the whole summer to negotiate his contract.
Here's the
thing:
the
team would have the cap room, so that the team could use the mid-level exception on DiVincenzo.
They're humans, man. They want to play with friends. They're human beings. They're in New York City. Yes, Zach LaVine is an upgrade.
They do not want to keep RJ and bring Zach LaVine in to take 16 shots.
That's a redundant. So that to me also in Miami, you mentioned it, and this is a great conversation. I think it's a little redundant if you have LaVine and Hero, and I like Hero.
Hero can be used to the 6-man role.
But
I think he's.
But a 6-man role in Hero's eyes it's still 30 minutes in closing games. That's gonna end up being redundant to LaVine.
Hero, LaVine, Butler,
Jimmy Butler, LaVine, Hero, Jaquez, and Bam. That's a closing 5. I can fuck with that.
I get where you're coming from legitimately. Zach, I do think though that When you take a look at teams like Boston and Miami in the Eastern Conference that have perennial playoff success, the common denominator with them to me is on the defensive end of the ball. They can stop the other team's first actions. Boston has always been good at the point of attack. Now they got Drew Holiday, Derek White. Miami's always been good at the point of attack. They had Gabe Vincent and Kyle Lowry. Now they've still got Jimmy. They got Jaquez helping out. Like, Miami has guys, Boston has guys that break their molds of archetypes, right? You need to. Jaylen Brown doesn't scream someone who should team up with Tatum and Drew and Porzingis, but he kind of works as another bucket getter there. Like, it all just kind of fits together. You need different kinds of players. I get that, right? But the Heat, and Al nailed it, have that in Hero. And I do always say that Tyler Hero got overrated early on in his career. Now, I think he's underrated because his playmaking goes a little underrated. I think because of the fact that all these years he's been the only guy on Miami who can hit certain kinds of shots, certain kinds of mid-range looks, moving pull-up three-pointers, not just catch and shoot or moving catch and shoot like Duncan Robinson, Hero
Right.
more versatile with the ball in his hands. I've always thought that he does face a little bit of a different kind of defensive attention that other talent could help with. I'm not sure
He's
LaVine
the
is the
only
kind
guy
of
on
other,
that
yeah.
team.
I
Yeah,
don't
he's
think
the only
LaVine's
guy
the
on that
other
team.
talent you want though.
I agree. He's the only guy on that team that can score 15 in a row.
I just think for the price, that's why I would consider. But say we take out Miami, then you don't think it fits. So we're
Well, that's the
basically
thing,
down.
Zach. If you're so high on Miami that you think one move could make them a top contender, then it needs to be a move where the fit's great. Because if that's where you're
I
pushing
think that's
in,
a fine. I don't think Butler needs the usage that you guys are thinking. I think Jimmy Butler would rather only be the guy that's there when needed and rather turn into a playmaker and a two-way guy, and just
Out
spread
of
it
the
out with
three
shoot.
guys, out
are
of
you
the
winning
three
games
guys,
if that happens?
yeah, that's a tough conversation. Out of the three guys that we're talking about, Zach LaVine, Donovan Mitchell, and Lauri Markkanen, I truly believe Markkanen is being slept on, and I think
He's the
he would
best of the
be
three. He's the best of the three.
he would be the great third piece in Miami, in my opinion. He
They
would be
all,
the great third piece
He'd be
in New York.
fantastic there.
In New
I
York, in
agree.
my opinion. So
So you're saying get rid of Randall,
So
Markkanen, and
I've said if I were New York, I would do Randall, McBride, and 2 protected firsts for a talent upgrade. Like, that's like something where, like, okay, yes, you can move
Jazz don't
Randall,
do that.
but for Lauri Markkanen, I would do Randall, Grimes, and draft picks.
that's huge.
If it means
How many
getting
draft picks would you do?
1 unprotected, 2 protected, Randall and Grimes would be the
Danny
starting.
Ainge is gonna need 3 minimum
That
with
would be the
Randall.
starting offer. He can he can keep Lauri if that's what's going to happen. It's not the Knicks are in a
Well, I think
position
he
where
can get
the
that,
Knicks aren't
but
in a rush though, so they don't
just
need
you
to.
guys value your value. Like, I get it, Randall's value is
Randall,
fair, but like
Grimes,
Randall has no value to the Jazz, is what I'm saying.
if it
So that's
was
why.
Randall, Grimes, 2 unprotected picks, no protected picks, I would also do that for Markkanen. It's kind of hard to construct a poo-poo platter with her. It's like not Randall, like I guess it would be Fournier, Hartenstein, Grimes, and picks. A lot of them. I don't think the Knicks do a deal like that. They would need Randall going out if Randall or Barrett going out if Markkanen's coming in.
I think the big elephant in the room, Chris, is quickly. Like, what are you guys gonna do with quickly?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought him up. So that's what I wanted to ask you guys. If I personally do this all day, obviously being a LaVine resident, you can keep your Villanova guys. You can keep the big 3 in New York and bring in LaVine for quickly, plus the other 3 dumps and Daquan, Isaiah H, and Evan Fournier, plus a pick or so. And I think
Isaiah
that
Hartenstein is like the best backup center in the NBA. That's not a dump.
Naz Reid. You ever heard of Naz Reid?
I know Naz Reid, who's from the state I'm from and who I saw play when he was 16 for Roselle Catholic at Cade
The GOAT, the
University.
6th man of the year.
I love Naz Reid. He's one of my favorite players. If he's one of my 10 favorite players to watch in the NBA, I know a lot about Naz Reid. Isaiah Hartenstein is a better rebounder, a better passer. It's right there for me. And Nas is way more talented at scoring. Way more talented at
Yes.
scoring
They're
Yep.
different universes.
and way more
Yeah,
talented at
they're
shooting.
different type players. I think they're
Exactly. If you've got
yeah.
3 stars in a starting lineup, I want Hartenstein starting with those guys over Reed.
Sure.
If one of my stars is Jimmy and another one of the stars is Drew, give me Nas Reed and give me someone who could score me buckets a little bit more. But
Value versus better player, but sure, that team's got to be absolutely loaded to go Isaiah.
Hartenstein is great. Him and Reed are both top 20 centers in the NBA, and neither even.
All right, answer my question on IQ in that LaVine deal.
No, you don't do that if you're New York because quickly so underrated. His two-way impact is ridiculous, and you look at even just like when he plays 29 minutes in a game, what he brings to the table. You look at that Los Angeles game yesterday, right? Emmanuel quickly comes out off the bench. He's not even the sixth man anymore because Josh Hart's always the first sub. He gives you 8 of 15 from the floor, 3 of 7 from three. You got the 3-2-1 combo, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 20 points in 29 minutes for quickly. Such great and efficient two-way impact. This season, 15 points a game, 3 rebounds, 2.7 assists, 37% from 3. So solid numbers for quickly. He's really good on the defensive end of the floor, and he's someone who you should want to re-sign for about 25 to 27 million dollars a year, in my opinion. Let's look at LaVine's contract, right? I know LaVine brings more today to a basketball team than quickly, but 5-year, $215 million contract, it's not pretty, yo. $40 million salary is not pretty for a guy who Chicago looks better without, who we know is not going to bring a positive impact on the defensive end of the floor. The Knicks are able to be picky. And I'm not saying that if they swapped out quickly for LaVine today, that they wouldn't have a better time scoring the basketball, but there's more to it than that. And they already got a lot of high usage guys. They would need to move a Barrett for a LaVine if that's the kind of move they're going to make.
You on the same page, Albert?
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's about fit. It's not about talent. It's about talent when you're building a team from the doldrums or from scratch, if you will. But even then, if you're constructing an 8-man team, 5 starting and your top 3 off the bench, you still want to fit. And so with Zach LaVine's playing style and his advantages, his pluses as a player, you have to get rid of guys like RJ or Tyler Hero because it's just too much overlap, in my opinion.
I just don't view RJ probably the way you view him, because I think Zach, RJ, and Brunson fit perfectly together. I love that. It's Randall, the one that throws it off. You put all 4 of those guys to throw it off. I don't think RJ needs much
who's
usage.
spotting up?
I think
Who's spotting up out of those
RJ.
3?
Zach will spot. They all can spot up. I mean, Brunson's the one that will do it the least.
They would drop in the standings if that's the 3 and one of them has to spot up, in my opinion. Yeah. Although Randall is limited,
RJ's doing as much as you're thinking.
Yeah, that's also a fair point. But I think where I'm coming from with RJ
gets a lot of usage right now. And
I think where I'm coming with RJ is like what we as basketball fans hope he becomes, right? And a lot of those skills, those pluses, is what Zach LaVine supposedly brings to the table.
All right. Any other spots for these 3 guys?
So I want to go with Donovan now. We've talked about the Brooklyn Nets a whole lot. We know he's from right near New York City. Would not mind playing for Brooklyn with his buddy Mikal Bridges. What do you guys think about Donovan Mitchell landing spots other than Brooklyn? Is there a team that, we always say like a Toronto-like swing because of what they went and did DeMar for Kawhi. But maybe even recently we could say a Sacramento like swing, moving Halliburton for Sabonis and betting on Fox like that. Any teams that you guys think should go after Donovan Mitchell and try and use this rest of the, like if they make a real push at him, make a little recruiting ploy and try to extend him?
I'll start for a few seconds and then Zach, feel free to chime in. So in my opinion, I'm just gonna grade Donovan Mitchell as a player. I think he's a pretty good pick and roll offensive player. When he's hot doing his pull up 3-pointers, he's basically unguardable because everyone's backing off him because he's so explosive with that first step. But even if he's not shooting well, he's a negative on offense. And then on defense, you can't make any argument for him as a plus player. So it's tough for me because he has the superstar reputation and the superstar contract. It's going to be hard for me for as a winning team to justify that. As a losing team, give me Donovan Mitchell all day, every day, because he's going to average 36-6 and be the face of my franchise and win 25 to 35 games every year. As a championship caliber team, I'm not going to touch him.
Do you, if you're Charlotte, think to yourself, hey, we might lose LaMelo Ball. We should just go after this guy and see if we can pair him up.
Absolutely not. There's no sign. What? Sorry, what was the last part?
Just like see if you can pair him up, and if you lose LaMelo, then you hold on to Donovan, or you think Donovan would just walk on them and they shouldn't go after that. Any winning teams that you think should dive after Donovan and try to make something happen?
So that pairing just wouldn't go defensively. And then you'd have to worry about
neither would Brunson and
figuring
LaVine.
out Miles Bridges. Cavs, are they really going to want Miles Bridges already? I mean, they've only seen him for a couple games back, and we
didn't even talk about defense with a Brunson and LaVine backcourt. Yuck.
I guess I still like Bronson's defense better than most, but Mitchell, as for Albert's point, as a championship contending player, I always thought those Jazz teams were just missing one piece. I thought they could get it done with a better wing. Like say Lauri was that piece. I think they could have won. I mean, if they had a Lauri then. With that same exact team otherwise. Obviously, Boyan's out or something. Probably, but no, I think Donovan Mitchell can win a title. But he's not maybe not gonna be the number one player, but he could be a 1A, 1B type of thing. It's got to be close. Miami for sure. I mean, he's an upgrade over Tyler Hero. Hero's a guy you'd send out for Donovan Mitchell, in my opinion. Mitchell's the hardest one in this group.
That works fit-wise for me. If you make Hero part of the trade and upgrade him to Mitchell, okay, I see where you're coming from.
Okay. And then going down just like Vegas odds, I mean, Houston and New Orleans are really high up there. Do I think those are teams he'd play for? Because he's the trickiest one of all personality wise. So the question is, does he I don't think he's a guy that would deal with Zion's bullshit. I don't. So unless they're sending Zion out and you're going to do like a Ingram Mitchell, Trey Murphy pairing, and which would be great. I think Mitchell's a huge upgrade over Zion, just based on health. So CJ and Mitchell, then you definitely got more talent than any of those Portland teams, and you got more defense there if you'd be able to mix them up. But maybe you send CJ back home to Cleveland, and maybe he gets his reunion in Cleveland too. So that's something. I think there's a world at fit, and then if Zion and Mitch are beefing, you obviously choose Mitchell in that regards. But Houston, man, I just don't see it unless Jalen Green, you can sell him. Everybody wants to bench Jalen Green right now, which is wild to me. They're already writing this guy off, and he's been terrible. But that's what happens. What's that?
That's hilarious. Everyone's writing this guy off. He's been terrible, but well,
I mean, he's
that's
young.
what happens.
So, I'm a guy that believes young guys go through growing pains, and he's too young, and they're too invested in this guy. I mean,
he's definitely young, but they're not too invested in him. Let's be honest.
That high of a pick?
No, I think they did a good job going out and getting other talent this past offseason.
Yeah.
They got FVV.
They're in a playoff race. They're not gonna bullshit around and try to develop.
They're just creating a winning environment. They got FVV and Brooks, and they're trying to win ball games. I'll say
this one more thing about Donovan Mitchell. So he's 27 years old. We've seen him be the number one option now for several years, right? For 2 franchises, several years. It's now on him in his own brain to have the self-awareness or the mindset of, okay, maybe I'm not good enough to be a number one on a championship team. But if I join a team with a Giannis or Jokic or Embiid,
Maybe even just Butler and Adebayo, man.
even then, I
Yeah.
think he'll view himself as the number one on that team.
He could be the number one, and
But
I
that's
think
what
Butler.
He can be the number one scorer.
But
Butler could
that's
do it
my
too.
argument. My argument is he needs to join a true number one because he is a
Gotcha.
true number 2 himself.
All right,
Word.
so we could see that situation in Miami.
I
But
think Bam
Houston,
and Jimmy serve enough as a combination, but I get exactly what you're saying, Al. I've long been on that train with Donovan, so I get what you mean. I just think Bam and Jimmy actually would be a lot of fun together. Just the depth there would concern me because you got to give something else up besides Hero too. Any other spots? Any teams you guys think should go after Lauri real hard? OKC.
Okay, what about any of these guys for Houston or Lakers? Because
what do the Lakers have to give up?
They have D'Angelo Russell. That's a decently sized contract,
but what do they have the teams want?
Don't they have a 2 late picks yet they can give up?
But Chris,
what do they have the teams want?
No, Chris.
No,
you follow the
picks could be
NBA
really
long
good.
enough. You follow the NBA long enough. The Lakers want something to happen. It just happens.
Exactly.
Magically,
it just happens.
The Lakers have their 28 through 30 picks, so they and they got a 25 first.
Okay, so
they have 3 picks they could give up. Yet LaVine's not going to take 3 first-round picks plus.
Can they trade the 25? Does that step you in doubt?
I mean, Fanspo has it
as movable. Okay, word.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we're gonna stay on these trade topics all season, but I feel like this feels like a good time to wrap up today's episode. Let's wrap it, and I want to wrap with a final answer, a one-word answer. The 3 guys we said, Lauri, Donovan, LaVine, do any of those 3 get moved before this deadline? If it's so, who? I say yes, and it's only LaVine.
Oh, 100% agree to that. I mean, I think Lauri would be second best odds, Mitchell third. I think I'd put 100% or 95% on LaVine. I'd go
95.
That's very strong.
I'd go 25. I'd go 25% chance Lauri's traded, and then probably about equal on Mitchell.
Al and his analytics brain are freaking out at how high you're putting your odds right now.
No,
I would say 65% chance to 75% chance that Mitchell is dealt. I would say
sure the Bulls front
office. I would say from the perspective of all 3 franchises, the team that needs to be the most forward thinking right now, in my opinion, because it's a great asset to have. Cleveland needs to move on from Donovan Mitchell and get something back before he walks.
I also agree to that.
I like it. Well, guys, I say LaVine gets moved. No one else. I say Lauri has like a 5% chance of getting moved. Donovan like an 8% to 15% chance, somewhere in that range. If you're feeling frisky, 15. I just think Cleveland holds on to him and tries to re-sign him. Unless things go really sour, then maybe. You know what? I'm going to put Donovan at like 28 right now. Because I did hear something recently about a little chat he had with Mr. Altman, Mr. Kobe Altman. So maybe
What's that?
maybe I'll put Donovan at like 28%. And other than that, I'm ready to go, man. I hope y'all have a great week. Y'all be our listeners, you two idiots. I hope we'll be in touch. But to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for catching up around the association with us. For Zach Noble, for Albert Wen, I'm Kris Persian, and here on All Things NBA from A to Z, telling you guys to subscribe, like, thumbs up, rate 5 stars, comment, you name it, and catch us soon. Stay tuned. Peace out.